What is up, guys? It's Will Sports. I'm here doing a video on huge conference realignment news that we've been expecting for months. When we got the Colorado news, we were surprised that it happened, but at the same time we weren't, because we knew Colorado had been rumored to be interested in going back to the Big 12 for a long time. And when it finally happened, we were just finally surprised because it took forever to get to that point, but it happened. Same thing here with Oregon and Washington. They are going to the Big Ten. They are leaving the Pac-12, and now the Pac-12 is down to 7 schools, with 3 more that are rumored to be leaving to the Big 12 in Arizona, Arizona State, and Utah. It is a mess out there in the Pac-12. It's sad to see, but it's just been poor leadership from, ever since they added Utah and Colorado back in 2011. It has just been poor leadership year after year after year. And even when things are going downhill and it's clear and they need to be proactive, they still haven't done it, and it has led to what they have now. So now you've lost UCLA, USC, Colorado, Oregon, and Washington. And like I said, 3 more schools are probably out, especially after hearing this news. Oregon and Washington to the Big Ten is huge. There have been so many rumors talking about the Big Ten not wanting to add these schools because they didn't feel like they increased the revenue. But it had been reported that the Big Ten was offering them a smaller share of their revenue to where it wouldn't prohibit or hurt other teams' revenue that are already in the conference, that are already set in that media deal that the Big Ten has. So Oregon and Washington are going to be getting less of a share than the other 16 schools in the Big Ten. But if you're Oregon and Washington, it's still way more than you would be making in the Pac-12. I think it was reported 30 to 40 million, something like that. I don't know the exact numbers because it hasn't been reported, but that was the numbers I saw yesterday that they were talking about on my Twitter feed. So, Oregon and Washington, I don't think it should matter about how much money you're necessarily making right now. Well, it should matter, but it's just the fact that you're in the Big Ten now. You have a foot in the door, and when the next media deal comes, or as the years progress, they're sharing they're gonna get a full share. So I don't think that was something that they needed to be too concerned about. Just get out the Pac-12 because it's dying, and those other 3 schools, Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, once they leave, then you're stuck in a conference with 4 other schools that really don't offer much value in Oregon State, Washington State, Stanford, and Cal. That's a group of 5 league at that point, or a lesser league. It's not the same. You would have to backfill with a bunch of G5 teams, and the Pac-12 is not the same anymore. I think everyone who can get out should get out now. And Oregon and Washington did that, and credit to them, because I've been saying it for months. The Pac-12 is a sinking ship. They have terrible leadership. George Kliavkoff, Larry Scott, both terrible commissioners, have not done anything to progress the conference forward, but only set it back. Larry Scott was obviously the main person who's responsible for all this. He made numerous bad decisions in his tenure with the Pac-12, but then George Kliavkoff comes in and just hasn't done anything. I mean, they don't have a media deal. They haven't expanded. They had opportunities to expand with San Diego State and SMU months ago. If you do that, then maybe you keep all these members and you have a 12-team conference. You're able to get a media deal, and maybe the Pac-12 is still alive. But he didn't do that because they wanted a media deal, but they couldn't get a media deal done. San Diego State, now they weren't going to be able to leave the Mountain West at that point, because it would have been a $34 million exit fee, because their deadline to not have that fee be in place was July 1st, and the Pac-12 did not get back to them, obviously, and it fucked San Diego State over, it fucked themselves over, and now look, the conference is basically dead. But Oregon and Washington going to the Big Ten, this is huge, and a lot of college football fans are saying the sport's ruined. They don't like where the sport is heading. You can look at it like that for sure. It is changing rapidly. I mean, this is rapid changing. I don't think we've ever seen college football, college conference realignment movement this much, in a short span of time. I mean, it's been a lot of movement. but it's necessary because these schools have to do what's best for them, their athletic programs. And like, it sucks that certain schools are going to get left behind, but I can't blame any of these schools for leaving the Pac-12. These schools did not want to leave the Pac-12. Obviously, they stayed in the Pac-12 until the very bitter end. They gave the Pac-12 every opportunity to capitalize off that time that they gave them, and the Pac-12 did nothing with it. The Pac-12 didn't get a media deal before the Big 12, but then even after that, they had a whole year and still couldn't get anything done. They didn't want to do anything. So you can't blame these schools for doing what's in the best interest of their program. People said they want the sport to be regional, but what are Oregon, Washington, Arizona, what are these schools supposed to do with 20 million when schools like, Rutgers are making, over 70 million a year? Vanderbilt, like, those schools are making significantly more money than you. And people like to say that it doesn't matter, but it does, because those schools can always poach your coaches. They're going to be able to get more money in NIL to other players. They're going to have better facilities. They're going to be able to do a lot more as a program, and they're going to have more exposure. Staying in the Pac-12 would have given you limited exposure as any of these schools, because the Pac-12's media deal was going to be all streaming basically, and that money wasn't even going to be fully guaranteed. It was going to be based off subscriptions and different incentives. That's not sustainable. That's not going to work, because you need to know the full amount of money you're going to be making as a school so you can invest that money into different things or put it into different, whatever you want to use it for. Like, you need to know what you're going to be making exactly, and not have estimates and projections, because that's not going to work. So Washington and Oregon doing this, I'm happy they finally did it, because I think it's going to make the sport interesting. I think a lot of people, hate that it's changing, but think of the matchups we're going to get with these new conferences. In the SEC, you're going to get Texas playing Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Oklahoma playing Auburn, Texas A&M, LSU. Like, these matchups are going to be huge. We're going to get great matchups every week. In the Big Ten now, you have a whole Western wing, and I'm sure the Big Ten will make sure that, to limit as much travel as they can, they keep all those 4 teams playing each other on a year in, year out basis. I think that needs to happen, because that can help alleviate some of the travel. Obviously, you're not going to alleviate all of it, but at the same time, the travel thing I don't think is as big of a deal as people want to make it seem. Maybe for the other sports, the Olympic sports, yes, I think that's going to be a difficult thing to figure out, but the Big Ten will do what they can. The Big Ten has very good leadership, and that's why they're in the position they are in right now. So I have 100% faith that the Big Ten is going to figure out a steady plan that helps them alleviate some of the travel. But in football, you're traveling across the country anyways. You might not have to go as far. Oregon's not had to go to places like New Jersey and Maryland, obviously, but they've gone out to Georgia and Dallas for games before, and for bowl games and different events. So, and a lot of these college players, this will just prepare them for the NFL, because in the NFL you're doing this, a lot. And I get people think that regional rivalries and different stuff like that is what makes this sport what it is, and yes, I agree, but people like to over exaggerate it. We're not losing all of our rivalries. Yes, we're losing some, and that sucks. But if these schools want, they can schedule those games out of conference. If they really want to play those rivalries that much, they can schedule them out of conference. But we're also going to be getting rivalry games like Texas A&M and Texas back. If Utah joins the Big 12, we got BYU and Utah annually, and they have to play each other, because they don't play each other some years, because I don't know why. They just don't. But, now they're going to have to play each other every year. We have, Oregon and Washington are going together. UCLA and USC are going together. Texas and Oklahoma are going together. We still have all these SEC and Big Ten rivalries intact. The Big 12, Colorado's going back, and, they get to play their old Big 12 schools like Texas Tech and Kansas State and Kansas and, Iowa State. Those type of schools that they used to play on an annual basis, they get to play them again. I think it's being a little over-exaggerated. I obviously get that we're going to lose some things, but I think the sport's going to be more interesting, because we're going to have these big matchups. You're going to have more unpredictable matchups now, because, to be honest, we don't want to see Ohio State playing Rutgers. We don't want to see Oregon playing, Cal. We want to see the Oregon and Ohio State playing each other. That's what I want to see. And I think the Big Ten, really needed to do this because I still think the SEC is the better conference on the field. Now, the Big Ten is obviously a more valuable conference in terms of the finances and all of that, the value of the brands. But the SEC is the better conference on the field. I think the Big Ten getting Oregon and Washington is getting them closer to that even leveling playing field, because now you have Ohio State, you have Michigan, you have Penn State, you had USC, you had Oregon, you had Washington, UCLA to that, Wisconsin, Nebraska. These are all huge brands, and the money that the Big Ten is going to be generating, they're going to continue to get better, and they're going to be poaching all the best coaches across America. So it's going to be interesting to see. The next domino to fall is going to be the Big 12, and see if Arizona State, and Utah do it. I don't know why it's taking so long for those schools. I think this is going to definitely speed that up now, though, because I don't think there's any way those schools will stay in that conference with Oregon and Washington being gone now. I had been reported earlier that Oregon and Washington were actually on board with staying in the Pac-12, but that must have just been a smoke screen. It must have been somebody leaking reports just to try to, intensify, the Big Ten to get on it, or for Oregon State and Washington State people. I don't know, but it's happening. Oregon and Washington are going to the Big Ten. It had been rumored for so long, and I'm just happy we can finally stop talking about it, and we can finally focus on just what's actually happening, and not hypotheticals and speculation. And we can just talk about, yes, they're going there, and it's going to be next year. They're going next year to Pac-12. This literally is probably going to be the last season of the Pac-12, because Oregon State and Washington State are going to have to go to the Mountain West. And I feel for those programs. I don't think the Mountain West is terrible. It's a solid conference, but in terms of the finances, they're going to take a dip in the money they're making. And it sucks for those programs, but I think those programs can recover. The good thing for them is that they could be the big fish in a small pond in that conference. And, with the way the playoff system is set up, who knows? That could give them a better chance at getting into the playoffs if they win the Mountain West. So those schools it sucks for, but I think if they just continue to invest in their programs and do what they can with the money that they are going to get from the Mountain West, you just got to keep persevering and keep pushing through. And if you can make the playoff and have a little run or something like that, get there, maybe down the road another spot opens up for one of those schools. But it really does suck for those schools because they've been Power 5 programs for all their time. So it really sucks for them. Cal and Stanford, I'm really interested to see what they do. I think Stanford's going to go independent, but Cal, I really don't know. I don't know if they're going to go independent, if they would want to go to the Mountain West, if they would just drop their sports. I doubt they would drop their sports, but it'll be interesting to see what they do, because I have no clue what they're going to do. Do those 4 schools just try to stick together and try to keep the Pac-12 name alive and try to add some schools? It's going to be tough because they don't have a media deal. A media deal with those 4 schools is not going to get you anywhere. So they would have to add schools before they can even get a media deal. And if they do that, you're probably going to get a run with the Mountain West is going to get with Oregon State and Washington State. So I don't know, but there's a lot of different things going around. We still got the ACC, who Florida State is trying to get out. I don't know if they're going to be able to get out because of that grant of rights, and it lasts till 2036. But we will see, because there's been a lot of smoke there. If the ACC breaks up, then I think that's when it really has changed as a sport. And I would think the SEC will counter immediately if the ACC happens to break up, because they see what the Big Ten's doing. And I credit the Big Ten for staying aggressive, because they could have just let Oregon and Washington continue to sit out there. And they didn't have to add these schools. They would have been fine without them. But I think adding these schools benefits the Big Ten a lot, especially since they're kind of getting them for cheap, because Oregon and Washington had no leverage, and they had to make this move. They just had to get out of that Pac-12. But yeah, no news is broken on Arizona State, and Utah yet, but it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. I'm very, in shock about this, but college football is fun. I can't wait for the season to start. But yeah, a lot is changing, and I want to know all you guys' thoughts. I might have left some thoughts out. This is just kind of an off the top reaction to it, but Oregon and Washington to the Big Ten, guys. So let me know what you guys think down below. And that's my thoughts. It's been Will Sports. Peace.